Some argue that attendees should leave their leather and kink and fetish gear at home. Kinksters were among the very first activists in the early days of this movement, and among the first AIDS activists as well. Those who prefer a more mainstream look say it's a matter of consent. Telegraphing your sexuality in public could violate the sensibilities of those who might not wish to see it. Those who disagree say that kind of self-censorship demeans the movement itself. It was born out of a struggle against oppression and the policing of sexuality at a time when the community was seen as an inherent affront to decency. So, who's right? Joining us now is Al Ramluhan. He is the chairman of the San Francisco Leathermen's Discussion Group. Mr. Lujan, welcome to the program. Glad to have you with us.
Great. Thank you, Joshua, and happy Pride to everyone out there. Glad to be here.
Let me put that dichotomy to you. Who do you think is right?
Well, I have two reactions. The first one is my guttural reaction, and that is, look, I'm a queer man of color, a leather man, and I go wherever the hell I want to go, and if you don't like it, turn away, kick rocks. The second one is a little more nuanced, which is we've been there. We've been around since the 50s and 60s, and like you mentioned, we were there at Stonewall next to our brothers and sisters, queer folks, trans folks, drag queens, and people of color fighting the fight. Again, you mentioned the AIDS epidemic. We were there. I was arrested multiple times trying to get services to our people. We started the fundraising model in our bars to get funds to fund research, to support our brothers and sisters who are struggling. So we've been there all along. And, you know, we're part of the community, and, you know, there's a lot of infighting, and I think that we should really focus our energies elsewhere.
I don't want you to have to generalize for the people who are in the organization, but if I asked a few people what being a Leatherman means to them, what being in leather means to them, what are some of the answers that I might hear? Bearing in mind, there are probably a lot of people watching this who've never had a chance to ask this question to anyone who is actually in the community. What kinds of answers might we hear if we asked, what does this community mean to you?
This community, it's a family. It's really a family of like-minded folks. And there is really a broad, diverse subset of the leather and kink community that I may not interact with everyone in the leather and kink community that maybe is not in my interest, but we acknowledge each other and we support each other and we understand our plight for visibility, for acceptability. So people may think like, oh, well, this is all about sex, but really it's not. This is my identity. This is who I am. This is who I identify as when I get up in the morning.
I'm going to lay some cards on the table and not pretend to not have any idea what the Leathermen's Discussion Group is. I used to live in San Francisco. I attended LDG meetings. I presented at LDG, including a workshop on how to do interviews for the sake of preserving oral histories of the leather community. So I know a lot of the people who've been involved in this group very well and hold it in very high regard. Partly, Al, because part of what groups like LDG do, and this kind of gets to what are these leather people all about, is to explain all of these wild, kinky, freaky, interesting things that people are interested in so that they don't get hurt. And to me, that's part of the value of having this visibility, is because whether you meet someone who is into this or not, if you're into it, sooner or later you're going to explore, and it's important that you know what you're doing so that you don't get hurt and that you don't hurt somebody else.
Absolutely. And for Leathermen's Discussion Group, for those who don't know, is an organization, and this is our 25th anniversary, I'm very proud of that, who seeks to educate and to mentor anybody, whether you're young or old, new or part of the scene for many years. So our vision was just really to educate on a broad spectrum of topics, whether it's depression and suicide, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's actually kink play and consent. So we have been really at the forefront of trying to get education across the board and to inform people who may not be into kink, but at least can have a broader perspective of what it is we're about.
Where do you think that this divide comes from today? There was a piece in Rolling Stone that referred to Puritans, these kind of younger LGBTQ people who want to sort of keep kink and alternative sexuality out of Pride celebrations. I'm not sure this is generational. I think this has been here kind of since the community coalesced in the last few decades, but where do you see this debate coming from, this pushback coming from?
Well, I think that the right has a way of infiltrating our subconscious to where we're kind of a little self-loathing in some of these things. But I have to say, like, whether I'm like wearing, high heels or boots or a fig leaf marching down Market Street, I'm still part of this community. And the right is never going to accept me. The right is never going to look out for me or want me part of the broader picture. So let's stop infighting and really kind of focus on advancing our community. There's bigger battles to fight than within each other. Sexuality, it's human nature. We portray ourselves a little more hyper-sexual than maybe other parts of the community, but we're still part of this community.
Before I have to let you go, there may be someone who's watching this who either identifies with you as a Leatherman or knows someone who is kinky or who's into something that may seem unusual and just kind of doesn't know what to do with them or with themselves anymore. For someone who may be wrestling with that, thinking about that, what would you say to them before I gotta let you go?
Well, I would say that, do some research, read, and part of Leatherman's discussion group component is the component of mentorship. We have a mentorship program where we bring in folks who are curious, who have questions, and we pair them up with elders, with people who are more experienced, and really to answer those questions and to kind of explore the dynamic of kink BDSM within their own lives to see how it fits. And it may be that it doesn't, and that's fine. But it's really great to ask questions, to really seek out the more experienced folks in the community and ask those questions.
Alron Lujan is chairman of the San Francisco Leathermen's Discussion Group. Mr. Lujan, I think we made some history on cable news. I bet no one has ever had a Leatherman on cable news before, ever. And I'm thrilled to have had you on tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm proud to be part of this, and happy Pride.
We should note that there was an appearance, as we told you earlier in the program, by former President Trump.